day and welcome everybody joining our podcast, Travel with the Wild. My name is Bron Hogan and today I'm very excited to have Nicky and Paul who are traveling around in a wonderful vehicle called Rumble Bum, and their Facebook page is called Rumble Bum Around Oz. I think it's delightful. Your name is what drew me to you, and then I loved your photos and your sense of humor. And then I started thinking, before you begin, that it reminds me of 10 years ago when my partner and I were setting out and beginning our traveling in our yacht. And I'd never sailed before, and we ended up spending 6.5 years living on board, traveling around the South Pacific Islands, Australia, and other places. But the conversation is not about me, the conversation is about you. And you haven't been very long on the road, have you? Perhaps you'd begin with that. So, welcome, Nicky. Welcome, Paul.
Thank you.
No, this is nearly 4 weeks. Friday will be 4 weeks, so no, not long at all.
How exciting. Yes. And what a catastrophe you've got into weather-wise.
Certainly have.
Yeah,
It wasn't what we predicted.
it hasn't read the script. Although, in saying that, it is that time of year, particularly in WA, it is cyclone season. It is coming towards the back end of it, but yeah, it served up something special this year for us.
You shall look back on it in years' time and think, oh, wow, remember that. I trust me, you will. So what made you decide you
We
were going to
definitely
go?
will remember Narelle.
I think you will. Sorry. So would you tell me what began your journey, and did you start in Fremantle or Perth, or where are you from to begin?
We began in Perth. We reside in Perth. I think what started the journey was we married, been in a relationship for 5 years. Both of us had aspirations to travel when we met. Both of us have done a fair bit of travel previously. This is not Nicky's first trip around Australia, although it is mine. And I'd done more of my travelling internationally. So I'm not that well travelled in Australia. I am in WA, but other than that, eastern states, yeah, I'm not very well travelled. So there was both a want, or should I say, there was a want from both of us to see a bit more of Australia. During COVID, that changed a lot for WA itself. I don't know about eastern states, but WA was quite a quiet state. Some of the secrets that are now firmly out of the bag in WA, like Ningaloo and places down south that are very, very, very popular now with travellers, weren't very well known, particularly with eastern state folks. Whereas now, so there was all that want, there was always the want for us, to see some of the spots that we visited quite frequently since we've been living in WA, because neither of us are born and bred WA. Nick is a Kiwi, I'm a Pom. So we wanted to see some of the places we love in WA, but without being on that time frame of having to get back to work in a couple of weeks. And obviously then there was the other part of me where, and Nicky, which Nicky really wanted to do the trip again, and I really wanted to go and see some places in Australia where I've never been before. Some of the other states, in fact, all of the other states, Queensland, New South Wales, NT, Tassie. Yeah, so we hatched the plan probably 4 years ago that we'd start putting a bit of money away, start saving up. A few things align with our work as well, which has enabled us to be able to do this trip. And yeah, we started 4 weeks ago officially.
Well done. It's so exciting. Well done. I just find it terrific that people are doing this now and that you're going to live your best life doing what you love. You can't fault that.
Well, we thought it would be our best life, but it hasn't quite been. Nah, but look, we've had a good time. It hasn't been a disaster. We've just had our plans thrown out. That's about the biggest impact we've had. We do have friends. Nikki has her daughter who was in Exmouth and got stuck there for the cyclone. So there's been plenty more people that have been impacted far worse than we have. So look, we've still got it good. It's just changed our plans a little bit, that's all.
This is true, and you're right. We laugh about it, but oh my goodness, it can't be fun to lose your home or your livelihood if you're a farmer and you've lost all your crops and things like that. It's really, one can't make light of that. I absolutely appreciate that. And how's your daughter going? Has she got somewhere to live?
100%. And as I say, yeah, our decisions to where we ended up changed so much in the 12 hours leading up to the cyclone making landfall. And that was all because of the information we were being provided by local authorities. It's not like we were just sitting there thinking that it was all a big joke. Our anxiety levels were through the roof in the lead up to the cyclone coming across and making landfall. But in hindsight, our decisions were good ones. We sustained no damage. We still had a place to live, whereas other people have lost a lot more than what we have. So we consider ourselves lucky, really.
That's awesome. That's awesome. So I was actually, as I do with any of my guests, I was looking back at your posts from before and I was looking where you traveled. And it's really interesting because Google Maps wouldn't give me, it kept saying, no, I can't give you any more because all the roads are blocked, all the roads are blocked. As I was traveling northwards
That's right.
Yeah.
through Australia. And I just thought, goodness, that's actually quite a bit of roads that you can't use. And so, how long do you think you'll be stuck where
Yeah.
you are?
We actually have no
Well,
idea.
we have the same conversation every single day.
Every single day with multiple people,
Yeah.
keeping an eye on what the authorities' websites are telling us. And I think the most common, I don't know how many times I've heard, let's see what happens tomorrow over the past
6 days.
6 days. So there's plenty more people in the same boat as us. We've made some really good friends. We're travelling with 3 other vans at the moment, currently in Onslow, trying to wait it out to get. We don't actually want to go back into Exmouth, which is where all the damage. We actually have station stays booked, and those stations are back open. We are speaking to those station workers as well.
But the roads are not open
The-
to get into it.
So they're happy to have us back, but we can't get down the roads to get to the station, so we're stuck.
So, how are you for provisions? One needs to have enough liquid and food for people. Are you guys able to get food and drink? And I'm not really referring to fresh water because I figured that there'd plenty around with all that rain. Or is that just a funny thing that there's actually not because it's contaminated everything?
Yes, they've actually
We've
had.
got no water here at the
We've
moment.
got no water in Onslow, so we're actually running on the tanks of the
Good.
van. We've got full tanks, or we did have full tanks when we arrived, so we're okay for water. But there's water rationing in Onslow and Exmouth at the moment due to damage sustained to bores that supply the town water supply. So the water supply is actually off in Onslow. They're carrying out supply repairs as we speak. So water is actually an issue. Food isn't. Food and fuel are good. Well, in Onslow, in Exmouth, they've got some more problems with getting things in and out. But water is actually something we're actually restricted on.
Goodness, yes. So, as soon as you're able to, what's the next place you're going to head to? North towards Ningaloo? Ningaloo? Can't say it.
Ningaloo. So yeah, we want to head back to Ningaloo. We are mindful of not being a burden on the local people. The
Yes.
stations that we've spoken to actually want us back. We have bookings for tours, and those businesses, they really need us back, particularly coming into Easter. It's one of their busiest time of years, and they're pretty desperate to get people back there to be able to continue to run their businesses. But at the moment, it's the main roads and the damage that the town has sustained by the sounds of it, which is the main issue. But yeah, we'll look. We're actually slightly north of Exmouth. If not, as the crow flies, it's east. But to get back to Exmouth, we need to go down. So we're just waiting on roads to open again.
Gosh, that is quite a predicament you're in. And I totally agree with you. One needs, especially at a time like this, to be able to support the local communities who actually, you guys, not particularly you indeed, but people who are traveling and visiting and tourists are the ones that create their livelihood.
That's correct. If we have to cancel everything that we've got planned in Ningaloo, most likely we'll get a refund, but it's not a small sum of money either. It's upwards of what, a couple of $1,000
Yeah, 'cause
maybe.
we've got whale shark tours, diving with the whale sharks, and staying at various accommodations, and what we would, it's sad. It's really sad to have to. I mean, for us, we live in WA. We can come back and do it again, but a lot of the operators are saying that actually they want you back as soon as the roads are open because they rely on that for their income.
Absolutely. It's really quite moving to hear how hard it must be for them. So, okay, moving on to more positive things.
Mm.
When 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 you finally get there and do your planned trips, even if they're at a different time frame than what you've booked them. Where were you going to head to after that?
After the Ningaloo area, or are you talking about what we're doing in the Ningaloo area?
Well, both, but I'd really be interested in what you're going to do there because it's a place I've not been and it's definitely on my to-do list. But I was wondering when you have finished this, if you could tell me what you've actually planned to do there, because that'll give people an idea of what is available and maybe encourage them to come and support those businesses. And then when you've finished exploring there, where do you head next?
We actually have an open book.
Yeah.
That's a chapter that we've left open.
We had bookings for the first 6 weeks of our trip from Perth to basically Ballara Station, which is in the Ningaloo. So we had the first 6 weeks booked and planned, and then after that we're just gonna wing it, really. But we had things like whale diving with the whale sharks. We had Yardie Homestead. We had Cape Range National Park. We had, what else did we have booked? We had Ballara Station, which was really well known, but unfortunately they've been absolutely smashed. Our anniversary was going to be at Ballara Station, but that probably won't be happening this year. So yeah, and then after that, I guess, I don't know. We're just going to have to. We'll head north and then go across the Kimberleys into the Northern Territory, I think, after here.
That sounds fabulous. I've lost you, I'm afraid. Just, oh no, you're back again. That sounds really good. And can I just ask, are you totally self-contained with your rig?
Yes, we are.
Well,
We have solar on the roof. We have water tanks. We have battery system.
and toilets and that sort of thing.
Toilet, shower, generator. We've got a petrol generator if it gets cloudy and the solar's not working. And so yeah, we're pretty well set up for off-grid living.
That's really fabulous. That's very nice to know that because, gee, it would be hard for people who don't have that. So my partner and I, we had to stop sailing because of COVID. And so we never did any more big trips. We just did a short one, a couple of months or something, but not full time. And then we bought ourselves a camper van and it's just a little one and it's totally self-contained. You can't believe what you can fit in there. And we booked to go on the ferry from the Spirit of Tasmania from Tassie to Geelong in Victoria in the middle of July. And what we wanted to do, because we're so into fishing and going up rivers, we managed to fit our inflatable dinghy from the boat and a motor and my man's golf clubs all there because he lifted the bed up. So we've got all that more space to be underneath. And we took it on a little trip down here near Bridport and went up the river. And it took us 10 minutes to set up. So we thought, right, definitely it comes with us. So all we were hoping for is that by July, maybe there's more stability in being able to get fuel and that sort of thing. But, who knows? So we just go with the will of the wind, I guess.
And that's another factor you've just touched on there, that the fuel cost for this trip is also factoring in to our plans as well. I think it's a bit of a fallacy that people think that everyone traveling on the road who has a half decent car and caravan has an infinite purse to dip into. That's not the case. People are on budgets, as are we, and the fuel price is definitely affecting what our plans are doing at the moment.
Totally understand that. Yes. So it's just, I think, to get on a positive side, you say you've made friends with 4 other travelers, 4 couples?
That's correct. Yeah, we've met some great people, and they're people from all over Australia as well. They're not WA based families or couples. They're people from all over Australia trying to do the same thing as us, see this amazing country and what it's got to offer.
One of the couples, they've only got 8 weeks, so they're kind of waiting for Ningaloo to open back up, but they may not get to see it because they're on a bit of a time frame. The rest of us, we don't really have time frames, so we're okay. So yeah, it's interesting talking to other people though, and listening to their stories, and they've got kids as well and traveling with the kids, which is interesting.
Absolutely. One of my guests were sailors, so I met them during COVID actually, and we lent them a car, or just after COVID. I have 2 daughters that live in Brisbane, and we bought a real bomb of a car just to keep there for when we were in Brisbane to be able to. This is when we're sailing and living on board our boat, so it gave us a bit of legs. And my daughter was saying, "Oh goodness, I'm so sick of having to go and drive it because we're not allowed anywhere and it's really inconvenient. Why don't you just sell it?" And so I belong to a group called Women Who Sail Australia, and I put a post on there just when we
Hmm.
realized COVID had shut down everything. And I said, if anybody who's from overseas would like to borrow a car and can get to Brisbane to collect it, they're welcome to use it for as long as COVID keeps you here. And a couple from England, they had been sailing around the world. They had been living aboard their yacht for 11 years. Not now, it's 11 years, but it was
Wow.
less than that. And when they began, their youngest of three children was in nappies. And they were going very
Yeah,
slowly. And they used
I
it,
can
and
imagine.
you can imagine the difference it made to them. It gave them the ability to go and house sit instead of being stuck on the yacht all the time.
Yes.
They phoned us and said, "Would you like us to take it back? We're allowed to leave the country now. Would you like us to bring it back to Brisbane to your daughters?" And we said, "No. Ken has got a cousin at Bundaberg where they were. He will fetch it from the marina, and no worries, bon voyage." And so what we did is we then flew up to Brisbane from Tassie, got on what's called the tilt train. What a great trip that was, to go from there to Brisbane to Bundaberg, just to do something different. We'd already driven there and we'd already sailed there. We wanted to do it a different way. And then we picked
Hmm.
up this car and we spent about 6, 7, 8 weeks just chortling back. And we were going to come right back to Tassie with it, but it ended up that they closed the borders again. But the one thing that was interesting, so I noticed you've got followers on your Facebook page. So we do two on ours, which is called Travel With Us a While. And I put a post to say, "Hey guys, we're free. We're going to go up to Brisbane and we're going to do this route. And can you give us your special things that we can go to? Because locals know better than people who just are tourists." And
100%.
as a joke at the sort of bottom of my post, I said, "Oh yes, and if you have a spare bed, we'll bring the wine and we can have a conversation." And I just did it sort of as a joke. Well, we had so many lovely people inviting us into their homes. Of course, we took wine, and they showed us places that we would never have even knew. Well, we didn't know existed. Yeah,
Yeah.
travelers are fantastic. It's the way it really turns me on.
Oh, absolutely.
That's
Yeah.
brilliant. That's
Yeah.
awesome.
Yeah. So and I actually we got to meet them too, because as we were driving, we went past a place where they'd actually pulled in, and we caught up and had a meal and a drink and what have you. It was really fun. It was lovely to meet them. She's been a guest on my
Mm.
podcast. She's lovely. Anyway, this is supposed to be about you. And so the people that you're traveling with, you say that some of them have children.
Yes.
Are they young children or older children?
I don't even know how old they are. I know the couple that's got three kids, they've got their youngest is 2 and I think their eldest is 7. And then
Oh
the
wow.
other couple, their kids I reckon would probably be maybe 9 and 11 or something like that. They're very, very good kids and very well-rounded kids. The travel was great for kids. I mean, I don't know if I could travel with kids, but that's because that stage of my life has passed.
Well, I share with you that when we were sailing, we'd often bump into sailors who had young kids on board. They homeschooled them
Hmm.
themselves.
Hmm.
And we'd go, like, we were in Vanuatu, just to give you an idea. We'd go ashore at an island, and these children were sort of 8, 9, 10. Some were older, but mostly that sort of age, that they were at school but not yet getting, serious education, as in qualifications for the rest of their lives. And I found them to be the most well rounded, articulate children that we met. They were just incredibly self confident,
Yeah. Yeah.
and they were contributing to living aboard their yachts. And yeah, and I just imagine that people who are traveling with children with camper vans and things, it's an amazing life. I think it must be fabulous. Yeah.
Yeah, there's a lot of them doing it actually. I was really surprised at how many traveling families there are out there. There's so many.
Yeah, we bumped into quite a few when we were traveling in our van. And all I could
Mm.
think of, that's just wow. I grew up in Rhodesia. It was Rhodesia, now Zimbabwe. And every single weekend we were away camping and fishing and climbing mountains or going in caves. And my folks were very into, if you hear about something that you haven't seen before, if it's within spitting distance, then you must go and see it. And my dad, top 200 miles was spitting distance.
Yeah, that's
He's
that's a good it's a good area.
And for 6 weeks every year, we drive through the top of South Africa into Mozambique, the very bottom end where Lorenzo Marx was. I don't know what it's called, Maputo. And then we would spend 6 weeks going up the coastline through all the reefs. My dad was, and a friend of his came with us, and we had 2 cottage tents. The boys stayed in one, and my mum and I stayed in the other. And we literally were self contained with everything, and it was my best life. There were no 4-wheel drive vehicles. We used to let the air out the tires. And my dad had a contraption that you plugged into the lighter, and it compressed air so that you could pump them up again. I learned how to drive cars.
Yeah,
That's awesome.
I think that's probably Parks and Wildlife calling me. I think I have a phone call coming through, but I think it's going to be Parks and Wildlife cancelling our booking for tomorrow.
If you need to take it, that's not a problem at all.
They're leaving a voicemail. That's okay.
Yes, it's the uncertainty of it all. Absolutely. So I actually lived in Rhodesia, Zimbabwe during the war. I left at 17, and I can remember petrol rationing, and we used to have little coupons. And I had an older brother and a younger brother, and my elder brother and I and his best mate, they had little 50cc motorbikes, and I had a little 75 Rally Roma scooter because it was more dignified for a lady to have a scooter. Anyway, I can remember that we would go to the petrol tank, the pump, and it's probably not like this now, but in those days, when you don't start it, but if you held the hose up, you could drain about a litre of fuel into your tank. And we used to do that and go
Get the dregs.
Have you been siphoning fuel?
It was my dad's garage, and I always thought he didn't know we did that, but he wasn't silly. So I've literally been traveling all my life. At 17, I was a safari guide in Botswana, and I've lived in Namibia.
That's amazing.
You know, if someone would say to you, "Where's the best place you are?" And my answer is always, wherever I am at the moment, because everywhere is awesome.
It's a good life. It's a good way to live your life, I believe.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for joining me in this, because I really appreciate it. And I'm sure our listeners will be very interested to hear how different it is and what it's actually like right at the face of this storm and the damage it is. So thank you.
No worries.